Hey guys, welcome to my first tier list for League of Legends, and this one is going to be purely about supports. Currently what's being played in solo queue, we're not focusing on anything else like flex or LCS. This is purely solo queue and what has been working for me and what in my opinion are the best champions in solo queue currently as of patch 8.8. Now, nothing really has changed dramatically over 8.7 to 8.8. The S tier supports, I would say, are Nami, Lulu, Morgana, Janna, and Brand. Now, you can see there's some similarities between those champions. 4 of them, the first 4, are shield, heal, AD buffing champions. They're all pretty good right now. This is because AD is currently in a semi-decent state. So anything that amplifies AD potential will increase your chance of winning the lane. Also, all 4 of those champions provide peel for your carry or whoever is carrying the game. So in Nami's instance, you've got Bubble, and her heals at the moment are particularly strong, especially when you scale that with Forbidden Idol. If you choose to go tier as well, you got a lot more sustain mid game, especially in team fights and the longer drawn out fights. Lulu is particularly strong with champions such as Twitch, Kog'Maw, Vayne, any hyper carry basically that requires lots of auto attacks. Her shield right now is both really good at defensive measures and offensive measures, particularly in the laning phase. It does a lot of damage on poke, so EQ poke is still pretty strong. Nothing really been changed there over the past couple of months. Morgana is a champion that's been propping up. She's been played slowly more often. There is a potent movement speed build where you can go Twin Shadows or Shurilias as your first item, is what I like to do. With you can usually move into that with mobility boots, and you finish it up with Azonias. And basically what that allows you to do is with 2 points early in E, you can negate a lot of jungle ganks, whether it be Zac or Sejuani or anyone, any jungler really. If you put a black shield on your AD carry yourself, you're going to be blocking a lot of CC, and once again it protects your AD carry from any potential bad CC, and anything that helps AD this patch is pretty strong. Now Janna, the 4th one on the S tier list, she received some dramatic minor nerfs, which you may or may have not noticed. 5 movement speed reduction and 5 damage reduction on her W. Now this is a little weak in my opinion. She's been very strong for a couple, well, more than a couple of years now, and she is often played by people that are autofilled. She's a very safe pick to play if you're a support, and that's what makes her kind of ban worthy. If you're an enemy, if you're a support main against an auto-filled support and you ban Janna, they're gonna probably panic and maybe they might resort to something like Blitzcrank instead. And then the last one, which I haven't touched on yet, is Brand. Brand right now is the strongest AP support damage dealer. This is mainly because he has access to early magic penetration from Sorcerer Shoes and Oblivion Orb, and straight away that gives you 33 magic penetration, and you'll be usually picking up those items from the laning phase. And just those 2 items alone, particularly if your team is full AD, so if you've got, say, for a Yasuo top lane and a Talon mid lane, and maybe a jungler that hasn't got much AP or no AP at all, let's just say Yi, just for the sake of it, and obviously your AD, There are a couple of ADs that do have some slight magic damage, such as Varus and Kaiser, but generally speaking, ADs don't have any magic damage. Noteworthy. So in those situations where you've got a full AD team, Brand is a pretty standout pick because it is extremely unlikely that an enemy is going to be picking up magic resist just for you unless you are ahead, and then it leaves your other AD carries to carry the game because they haven't built any armor. And Brand's damage is particularly strong. Usually when I play him, even when behind or ahead, usually I'm top 3 in the entire game in terms of damage. And now Brand doesn't provide as much peel capacity as the other 4. However, his damage more than makes up for that, and he has got a hard CC. It is slightly tricky to land. It is flashable. There are a couple of spells that can block that. But having a hard CC on an AP carry support is very strong. And now we'll be moving into the A tier. Now you might see a common theme with the A tier list as well, plus a champion that has suddenly popped up again this patch. So we have Alistar, Blitzcrank, Rakan, Thresh, Taric, Soraka, and Nautilus. You can maybe sort of see a common theme between the A tiers, and that's because they are most of those champions that are listed apart from Soraka are kind of tanky. Something to bear in mind as well though, they are a tier below the S tier. However, some of these champions, such as Alistar, Blitzcrank, Thresh, Nautilus, and even Rakan, can counter a lot of those champions above. For example, Alistar flash engage onto anyone on the above with working with your AD carry, a bursty AD carry, maybe something like Varus or Misfortune or something bursty, will generally burn at least a couple of summoners, and generally a kill. A lot of kill potential in this A tier list. So Alistar right now has been pretty strong through most of the patches recently. He hasn't been quite S tier in my opinion, just because he can get harassed out in lane. But he has got the kill potential to follow up, particularly in early mid game mobility boots, able to roam around, get a bunch of kills. It's the same with Blitzcrank as well. If your AD carry is falling behind, you have the option to buy mobility boots and roam around. Once again, the same with Rakan, Thresh, Nautilus. I'll go into more Nautilus a little bit more at the end of the A tier. But all of those champions have potential to buy mobility boots and roam to the mid lane, which is very vital for solo queue, particularly if your AD carry is auto-filled, particularly if your AD carry is very far behind and let's just say tilted in chat. But those champions are very good at being able to try and get a new win condition, which is trying to get a solo laner fed. Taric and Soraka are also in this list for A tier. Now, Soraka isn't S tier because she is a lot more vulnerable than some of the other champions in the S tier. Her heals are particularly strong, and it forces the enemy team to buy a lot of Grievous wounds, and if they don't, they'll be punished by that, by the insane amount of Soraka heals. And she is an incredibly annoying champion to play against in laning phase. But she does fall off. If people buy Grievous wounds mid-game, she does become slightly more irrelevant, and that's why she's not in the S tier, but she is a strong champion. Taric is in a funny spot right now, and Mana Flow Band in a previous patch has made it slightly awkward. You will always have to buy tier on Taric in my opinion, because you'll be spamming spells, especially when you're doing objectives like Dragon, Towers, Baron, Herald. But Mana Flow Band, well, the only thing you can proc that off is Dazzle. So you can no longer go sorcery secondaries. You would have to take something like cookies. You can go, well, you definitely need cookies, and then you need to take either the magical boots, or you could go cosmic insight, which will give you 5% more CD. It's your choice, but you would definitely need cookies. And the reason why he's not in S tier or in the B tier is purely because of his ultimate. His ultimate depends on how good you are on the champion and how well you are at reacting and anticipating fights. If you can pull off a clutch ulti, it can easily change a fight. If you if you die before it comes off, or you press it too late, or you use it too early, gives it any multiple options to disengage and re-engage later, because it has got a massive cooldown. And his dazzle is one of the best support abilities in the game though. So if you dump that on, say for example Alistar, you charge up the dazzle just as he's going in with his Q kick, they can produce magnificent results. But a lot of these are ifs and buts on Taric. He has the potential to do amazing things. However, sometimes, you know, we're talking about solo queue here. Lots of things can go wrong, and when you're behind in particular, he doesn't really provide too much. All the ult provides is 2 seconds longer of you not dying, and even then it's kind of if you're behind as well, your team's going to be bursted down a lot quicker as well, so that gives you less potential of landing it down a decent ultimate as well. So when you're falling behind in the game, Taric isn't as clutch worthy. Now Nautilus, I briefly touched on. He's in the same category as Blitzcrank and Thresh. He has a hook, and they recently reduced the cooldown of his hook. They've increased the base damage on him. Now, it looks like, right, I'm looking into Nautilus quite hard, into seeing if they can buff him even more in the following patches. So this is definitely a champion that you're going to have to keep your eye on. I don't believe he's S. I don't believe any tank right now is in the S tier. He could easily slip into B tier, but I'm expecting him, and I will be playing him over the next couple of weeks. And I personally believe he's going to be stronger than Blitzcrank. He might be stronger than Thresh. It all depends on a couple of factors, but his ultimate is incredible. Very long range knock-up ability, and that can use in combination with something like a Yasuo or some other combo which can help get onto a person. Olaf, for example, that's a really good thing for Olaf as well. Like if an enemy has a long range, like an AD carry has the Nautilus ulti on them, Olaf comes zooming in, cleans up, singed. Anyone with movement speed able to get in to chase after whoever has Nautilus ulti on, there's a good chance that they're going to die. Now his hook is now on such a low cooldown at 40% CDR. Your hook's on a 6-second cooldown, and that goes down to 3 if you use it on terrain to escape or to help engage in. So you can use things like Hex, Tech, Flash, and use the hook terrain to get in even closer with Righteous Glory or Shuridias, and just start zooming in and just pumping out the engages like crazy. And having a hook on 6-second cooldown, and not including the E AoE slow, which puts it down to around about 2 to 3 seconds, is incredible. Peeling capacity, which something that Blitzcrank does not have. Thresh does have peeling capacity, but in terms of solo queue and laning phase, being able to hook someone, especially when your jungler's coming down, is an incredible spell, and it will help you against some of those S tier champions. It won't help particularly well against Morgana, but the other 4, even Janna, will struggle, honestly, against the Nautilus hook. Especially it coming out max rank every 6 seconds, you're going to have a hook. Now, one other thing on Nautilus that I haven't touched on is his W. Nautilus will struggle very early, as all the tanks do in laning phase. The key to beating a tank's support in lane is to getting them down to as low health as possible when they have the levels to engage. So for Blitzcrank, you need to get Alistar. For Blitzcrank, you need to get him down as much as you can before he hits 2. Alistar, you need to get him down as much as you can before he hits 3. And Rakan, if you dodge his abilities and with his W, then try and return some poke. But the lower the health the enemy tank is, the less chance they are to engage. But Nautilus actually has a really decent shield on his W. It makes him quite beefy, and it is honestly very, very strong. The amount of health that you are protected by, you do nullify a lot of poke. It is probably too much to say take W level 1, but it might be worth it against double poke bot lanes. But it is something to keep an eye on, and just bear in mind that Nautilus could get even more buffs in the future, which may actually squeeze him in just into the S tier. So just keep your eye on that. Now we're going into the B and the C tiers. I'm just going to show them both on screen right now. Some of the champions in the B tier can be moved up depending on how good you are and how well you play those champions and what elo you're in. So for example, Leona is okay in Diamond. A lot of players in Diamond know how to play against her. There are champions like, for example, Janna. You can, and Thresh, if you're quick enough, you can block the Zeref Blade. She uses the Zeref Blade to go in, and you can interrupt that dash if you're very quick. And then as you get into high elo, more and more people will interrupt that. However, if you're in bronze, silver, and probably gold, mechanically, skill players come at less of a rate. So playing Leona in bronze, in silver, and if you're good at her, she will easily be bumped up to A, or even the S in those lower elos, just because how strong her CC provides your team and how easy it is to get onto those carries. But as I said, as soon as you come across high mechanical skill players, you'll find her dropping off, and you'll need to think of a different champion, maybe in the A or S tier, to supplement the fact that you've been used to playing Leona. Now, Bard has always been in a weird situation. Items don't really fit him very well in this game at the moment. Locket not being great, Redemption only being okay. It's always tempting to build AP on Bard, but then you're way too squishy. He's in a really awkward place. However, his Q and his ulti are absolute game changers if you are able to land them. You have to be very, very good on Bard. I cannot state that more. If you want to play in Bard in Plat Plus, then you need to be very good on Bard. You need to know your limits, your damage limits. You need to know when to ult, because you can save people and save the enemy included by screwing up your ultimate. So that's something to bear in mind. He is I would say a high risk, high reward champion, but he suffers from the fact that items are very, very awkward to build on Bard. Now, another AP support on this list is Zyra. I was considering putting her up high to A, but I feel like without having a hard CC, her ult does do the knock-up, but you can easily move out of the ultimate most of the time. But not having a consistent hard CC, such as Brand or like a hook or a knock-up on a constant low cooldown, puts her in a vulnerable position. She does have a root, but it doesn't stop the enemy from using spells or abilities. So it puts her in a slightly less great position than you'd like. And also, I feel like her plants don't do quite enough damage. I feel like she needs some sort of damage boost on either plants or being rewarded more for landing Qs feels slightly off, and her damage output compared to Brand, unless you get really far in lane, is non-comparable. Damage wise, Brand is far superior. Zilean is a very interesting champion, and I can see him being played more in competitive play, but right now, if you're talking about solo queue, his bombs do okay damage. If you're very good, you can do double bomb procs efficiently, and you can catch the enemy off guard, and it can set up for nice team plays. And his ult is incredible late game. If you are anticipating to make it a 30-35 minute game, then his ultimate is basically gives you an extra player on your team. However, he is very squishy. Even with speed up that he has, he's still quite easy to catch onto. And when you do catch on to him, he's incredibly squishy. If you miss your bomb placements as well, which aren't always the easiest thing to land, especially when you're being chased down, it does put you in a very vulnerable spot. So I wouldn't recommend playing Zilean unless you're like a pretty big Zilean enthusiast. But he is okay if you can make it to late game. Tahm Kench just got nerfed, and to be honest, in a solo queue perspective, I don't really see why. I've always felt that if you get ahead in laning phase, he is a monster, but getting to that point is incredibly difficult, particularly in the Diamond ELO. His W saving potential is great, but it does require a lot of positioning and know-how, and even then, people in all ELOs, especially in Diamond, from what I experienced, people like leaving your mouth really quickly. They can stay inside you for 5 seconds. However, a lot of players don't stay in for that full duration at all when they should be, and I've seen plenty of AD carries die because they go out of the Tahm Kench W straight away when they could have easily stayed in for another 4 seconds, and then they die. So a lot of players in solo queue do not utilize Tahm Kench's devour properly. So that's why it's in the B tier. If you're playing with a duo queue partner, even with the nerfs, you can probably push it to A, but you need to be in cahoots with your AD carry, and you both need to know each other's playstyle. And sometimes consuming someone, devouring someone on Tahm Kench, they might have something that they might want to do in that split second, and you've just taken that potential away from them because you've just taken them out of the game for a second or two, which can annoy a lot of people, especially in solo queue. And the risk of annoying people is another reason why he's in the B tier. Karma is in a weird position right now. She's currently being played a lot more in the solo lane roles, just because the shield potential that she has, and her Mantra Q damage is pretty amazing. The reason why she, in my opinion, has fallen down a lot is because she is squishier. It is harder to decide whether you want to have which mantra you want to use in what situation. And honestly, if you don't do mantra Q, her damage is pretty weak, and her shield power is pretty weak. And the main good spell is Tether. Tether is a decent route, and you have the potential to lock down one individual. But that's it really. You're speeding up your team for an engage or a disengage. The movement speed that you get from the mantra E is very good. But the shield power, in my opinion, it could use a little help. It honestly could use a little help in terms of if they can adjust it for support, then that would be great. But right now, she just feels kind of weak. It just feels off. Every time I played her, it feels... she's in a weird place where she wants to do damage, but she wants to protect. But Lulu does those things much better. Lulu has much more consistent slows. Lulu has better individual saving power. She has better CC with the whimsy, whether she wants to speed up an AD carry to set them up for a Cogmore. is a lot better, or even to polymorph an assassin, which would be a lot stronger than a simple tether. So she's definitely weaker than Lulu, and I'd even go to the point of B tier. With some minor buffs though, she could easily be put into a comfortable A position. Brum got nerfed this patch, which I was actually particularly surprised at. I always felt he was edging towards B tier, and Alice has shoved him into B tier. He has always been a safe pick, safe tank pick option if you're first pick in solo queue. There's not a lot the enemy can do, but at the same time, there's not a huge amount Brum can do. His job is basically to protect other people, and they're trying to reduce that potential and not giving him anything elsewhere. I'm not sure why they've done that. I would have liked them to see them nerf some of the shield potential from his wall, but bring back some damage maybe from his Q, or increase the slow from Q. That would be pretty interesting. But right now, Brom is slowly falling behind, and it's kind of sad to see because it makes the safe pick, first pick option. There are less options. Even some of the champions in the S tier are a little bit risky. Morgana's and Janna are probably the safest. First pick. But that's all you're kind of left now, really, is Morgana or Janna if you're a literal first pick and you don't know what your team comp and the enemy team comp is going to be. So yeah, there's no real tank now that's a safe pick, which is kind of a little bit sad, honestly. I'm a little bit surprised at how much they're reeling in tank supports. It's been constant tank nerf after tank nerf after tank nerf, and I'd say these Brom and Tom Kench nerfs are a lot more severe than the Janna ones, which is only reiterating the fact that Riot seem to at the moment want to have these shield and heal like classic stereotype supports rather than the slightly more tanky playmaking potential supports. So it's a little bit disappointing, but if you are a fan of the shield and healing supports, then currently you're looking like we're in a relatively good position. But I would always recommend that you have at least one hooker champion under your belt, just to have the counter potential against a Nami or a Lulu or a lower mobility AD carry. Because at the end of the day, all this tier list suggests is what could give you the slight edge. But honestly, if you look at between all the champions, apart from anything that is listed in the C tier, it's pretty close. There's a lot of rock, paper, scissors that you need to bear in mind. That's why a lot of the tanks are in A, and the current, in my opinion, the buff heal shield supports are in S. But the champions in A tier can easily counter the champions in S, as long as the people in the A tier are better than the person playing on the S, if that makes sense. So a better Blitzcrank player than a better Janna player in terms of positioning and engaging potential will likely win that lane, because Janna, when she gets hooked in, she is incredibly weak and squishy. However, if her positioning is at the same level or better than Blitzcrank, then she's never going to get hooked. Or if she does, it's going to be extremely unlucky. But you get the drift. You've always got to be thinking about what the enemy has, what you have. Use this tier list to give you an indication of what is popular right now, and just take that information on board. Because there's no point, for example, picking a brand when you've got AP top and AP mid, because then you'll be adding another AP on your bot lane. And all it does is it will encourage the enemy team to buy magic resist even more so, which can ruin your damage potential from both your mid and your top lane. And another example would be, say, if their team is full of tanks, you don't necessarily want to pick a Blitzcrank or a Nautilus, because you would be grabbing in a tank into the middle of your team, which is giving them potentially a free flash. So for example, you don't want to grab a Maokai into the middle of your team on top of your Ashe AD carry, because before you know it, she's going to be on the floor dead and flaming you in chat. So you always have to bear in mind what the enemy has, and bear in mind what your team has. Bear in mind what both teams have, and just use this tier list as a guide. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed this tier list. Yeah. I do stream on twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. Feel free to ask me any support question that you like on there. I am on in the evenings on weekdays, UK time, and I am on most of the day on weekends. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the support main content, subscribe, and I shall be back soon with another support video. Catch you later, guys. Bye.